Hey, it's Jeannie Yandel in for Patricia Murphy. It's Friday, Casual Friday, and this is Seattle Now. How is it possible that we had a foot of snow in Seattle less than a week ago? In a minute, we'll talk about the winter storms wreaking havoc in Texas and elsewhere, and we'll take a trip to Flavortown with Seattle Times food writer Vinh and KUOW's Director of Community Engagement, Zaki Hamid. But first, let's get you caught up. Winter storms hitting the southeast and east coast are delaying vaccine shipments all over the country. Health officials said yesterday that 90% of the state's 200,000 doses that were supposed to be here this week are running late. That means a scheduling shuffle for Washingtonians who already had appointments. The mass vaccination sites in Kennewick and Spokane will be closed through the weekend because of the weather delays. Seattle is settling a lawsuit over its sweep of a homeless encampment at Cal Anderson Park last December. Ada Yeager had been living in the park for months when she filed a federal lawsuit to stop the city from clearing the park. She argued the sweep would violate her civil rights, but a federal judge declined to hear the case, and the city went ahead with the sweep amid protests. The Seattle Times reports the city will pay Yeager $10,000 to avoid a court case. And quick question. Do you know how to zipper merge? It's when you're driving, your lane is ending, and you have to get over. So you drive all the way to the end of the lane, past other cars even. Then you pop on the turn signal and merge with traffic, one car at a time. Each car is like a tooth on a zipper. I'm telling you this because if you don't know how to zipper merge, the state might require you to learn, thanks to a bill in Olympia that would require zipper merge education during driver's ed and license renewals. Republican State Representative Jesse Young of Gig Harbor told Cairo Radio that if we're ever going to unify, the zipper merge is the way to do it. Here we are at Friday again, Casual Friday. But I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure how to be casual about the fact that the Mars rover just landed yesterday. The Perseverance rover, what a great name, landed on the surface of Mars. It's only the fifth NASA rover to land on the surface of Mars, and its mission is to gather data and look for signs of ancient life in a crater. We will talk a little bit about that, and extreme weather events, and vaccine adventures. But first, Vinh is here with us. He's the food writer at the Seattle Times. Hi, Tan.
Hi, Jeannie. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. And Zaki Hamid is here as well. He's the Director of Community Engagement at KUOW. Hi, Zaki.
Hey, Jeannie.
Every rover has apparently had to survive something called the 7 minutes of terror in order to land safely. Do you know what the 7 minutes of terror is?
Yeah, I do. So if I understand this correctly, once the rover enters Mars's atmosphere, it loses connection with Earth. So there are about 7 minutes that people, in the home base that have no idea what is happening to the rover right now, whether it's entering, successfully, if it's crashing, what's happening. So that's what the 7 minutes of terror are.
Wow. I think it's really cool that they are looking for signs of ancient life in a crater. If it's not good news, at least feels like not awful news.
I'll settle for that. I'll settle for any news that's not negative or bad. What a week.
Yeah, what a week, right? We here in Seattle, I think, got off really easy with our winter storm situation. Our neighbors to the south in Portland did not get so lucky. Close to 100,000 people there went without power for up to 5 days because of the weather there. And in Texas, close to 500,000 people are still without power, which is actually an improvement from earlier this week, except that the power crisis has led to a water crisis, and now millions of Texans are under boil orders to make their water drinkable. Do either of you know anybody in Texas who's having to deal with this?
Yeah, I got friends in Texas. I've been texting them today. I've gotten through to one so far that says they're okay. They got some, power and water. My main takeaway is these are the things that we have to prepare for because of climate change. That's a great example of what is happening. Now, I know you can't maybe pin that particular storm on climate change, but our climate is changing and we're having severe weather events and we have to get ready for this.
I mean, I'm from Vietnam and this is things that happen in my country. I never imagined I would see something like this. The country would be so unprepared, or Texas would be so unprepared. It's just mind-boggling. I don't know if you guys have heard of Tim Boyd, who he is the mayor of Colorado City in West Texas. people in that area were asking for assistance because they had no electricity, no running water. And the mayor of Colorado City in Texas responded, "Take care of it yourself." Quote, "I'm sick and tired of people looking for a damn handout." He said, "The city and county, along with power providers, owe you nothing." And he says, "Only the strong will survive." When I read this, I was like, this is an Onion article, right? Like, this is satire, right? It is not. It's just amazing. You just can't make this stuff up.
Well, this is my question for both of you. If you were watching a television show where all of these things were happening, there's a pandemic, there are power outages and water shortages all around the country, and public officials are yelling at people who don't have power and water, saying basically, toughen up. Would you keep watching that television show?
It's definitely a jump the shark moment. Just like you're trying to put in way too many things. Like, okay, you put in a baby in the show, because it's getting a little stale. That's one thing. But you add all of these things on top of it. You're like, all right, okay, let's just keep it a little bit more simple. I'm done.
Well, I have to say, cynicism feels like a not terrible pivot to our next topic. Because the other thing, aside from power grid failures, that has been trending on my Twitter timeline is people commenting on the passing of Rush Limbaugh, and not in a positive way. Rush Limbaugh's wife, Catherine, told listeners that he had died on Wednesday on his radio show. I'm going to say a very NPR host thing about this, but people have very strong feelings about Rush Limbaugh. I personally never listened to his show. I still feel like he was omnipresent in my life, though. I always knew who he was. I always knew what he thought about things. I have a couple of uncles who listened to him and read all his books. Tan, did anybody in your life listen to Rush Limbaugh? What are you hearing about this?
Oh, God. I mean, I used to report in Georgia, North Carolina, and that's what you did. You listened to Rush Limbaugh. I mean, he was Fox News before Fox News and before there was social media. When I was covering politics in North Carolina, especially Georgia, that's all people listened to. I mean, Donald Trump pretty much stole his playbook. Because back then, I recall vividly, Rush Limbaugh radio was spewing conspiracy theories. He didn't use the word fake news, but he was saying mainstream media made up story to take down the conservative movement. And it was at a military meeting, and a guy came up to me and says, just like Rush Limbaugh said, you're just making up stuff to take down white America. He has such an indelible impact in our society and on talk radio. Because when I think of the conservative movement, I think of Goldwater in the 70s. And for the 80s and even 90s, it's Rush Limbaugh.
The things that he said about women, about gay folks, about people of color, immigrants, trans folks, it's just on and on and on and on. For a lot of us, I mean, it's a daily barrage of hate that was spewed and, directed at us, and for me, someone who's an immigrant, an Arab, a Muslim, I was not somebody that he talked kindly about. Let's just say that.
I feel like this next story is a kind of meme because I think I've seen a lot of memes of this particular person. I'm talking, of course, about Food Network host Guy Fieri, because he is opening a new place here in Seattle. It is Guy Fieri's Flavortown Kitchen, and it is takeout only, so if you're bored with your takeout, you've got a new option. The menu includes things like cheesesteak egg rolls, bacon-wrapped jalapeno poppers, and something called a cheesecake challenge that also involves potato chips and fudge and pretzels. Tan, food writer for the Seattle Times, are you going to take a trip to Flavortown?
Yeah. And by yeah, I mean no. I guess, his food is weird and there's no in between. Jeannie, you either hate it or you love it. But I'll give it to him. He's a great marketer because the most famous thing he's known for in terms of food is his secret sauce, which is called donkey sauce. And all that is mayo and garlic. It's aioli. There's a word for it. It's called aioli. But just through the genius of marketing, he says, hey, this is my secret sauce. Put donkey sauce on burgers or whatever. And it's just great marketing. I'll say this about Guy Fieri. People either hate him or love him. And especially people in the food industry, the late Anthony Bourdain and chefs and other restaurateurs, they will blast Guy Fieri. They think he is a sellout. His food is bad. It's just a money grab. And guess what? The pandemic came and all the restaurants were laid off and servers and chefs were laid off. And Guy joined force with the National Restaurant Association and helped raise $20 million to save their job, help pay their power bills. And now he's just beloved. And it's good for him. It's great for him in terms of redeeming himself.
Okay. Before we wrap up here, can I tell you two a little story?
Yes.
Okay. This is a story about Fran. Fran is 90 years old, and on Sunday, she had an appointment to get her first COVID vaccine. But when she woke up, there was almost a foot of snow on the ground, and the streets by her house still hadn't been cleared. I'm sure that this is an experience that we're all familiar with at this point. So here's what Fran did. She walked 3 miles through the snow to Seattle's Children's Hospital to get her first vaccine shot. And then, after the shot, she walked 3 miles back home. Tan, Zaki, would you walk 6 miles through the snow for a vaccine?
I would walk 100,000. Yes. To be the man who gets a vaccine.
Oh, that's good, Zaki. Keep going. Keep going. I want you in my karaoke team.
Short way of saying, yes, I would. And I'm nowhere near 90.
Man, I like when Casual Friday becomes a musical. Tan, what about you?
Oh, I definitely would. And you know what? Seattle Times, I think, wrote this story on Sunday or Monday. And as we're recording this on Thursday, it's still one of the most read story in the paper. And I think you have two camps here. On one camp are people who say that, hey, this is indicative of what's wrong with our health system, that someone who's 90 has to walk 6 miles in the snow. And then you have the other camp, which I fall in, where I'm like, it's such inspirational in terms of human resiliency. And it's just like, we do what we have to do.
This is kind of like inspiring, like I would imagine the greatest generation memes, right? Where like you find some parents screaming at their kid, like, your grandma had to walk 6 miles in the snow to get a vaccine and you can't even get up and do your Zoom class. So good on Fran. That's awesome.
I will tell you both. This is a secret between the three of us. I have already had my 8-year-old read that story. Because I'm going to remind her of that story the next time she does not want to do her school.
There you go. That story is like the new kids are starving in Africa. Eat your babies. Don't throw it away.
Eat your Flavor Town cheesesteak egg roll. Kids are starving elsewhere.
Exactly.
That is our show for this week. Thank you so much again to my guests. Zaki Hamid, he is KUOW's Community Engagement Director. Thanks, Zaki.
Oh, thank you, Jeannie.
And Tan Vinh, food writer for the Seattle Times. Thanks so much, Tan.
Thanks, Jeannie. Thanks for having me.
Have a great weekend. Seattle Now is produced by Clare McGrane, Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, and Jason Pagano. Matt Jorgensen does our music. I'm Jeannie Yandel. See you Monday.